100 Winters, Retracing the Great Race Against Death. Written by Jonathan Nathaniel Hayes. Illustrated by Caleb Jingva. Chapter 22, The Blowhole. The ground blizzard in the Blowhole quickly became the most extreme environment I've ever experienced, on trail or off. The only thing I could compare it to was the tornadoes I'd lived through as a kid in Tennessee and Alabama. The wind hurled sand and ice into my eyes like a sand blaster. I crouched low on the sled and leaned into the gale, but even that wasn't enough. Gusts would slam into me and the sled like we were sails, flinging us sideways toward the sea. But we kept moving. I was so proud of my little dogs, marching in tight formation like warriors into battle. Even with my wolf fur ruff pulled tight around my face, I could barely see my lead dogs. I could see nothing beyond them. I had to trust, once more, Providence and my dogs. Vodka and one-eyed Druid led the charge. Then, over the howling wind, I heard it, a low roar. A flash of movement. Something massive flew by me, so close I nearly jumped off my sled. What was that? Then a second came, same speed, same blur, and this time I caught it. Iron Dog Racers. The Iron Dog is a 2,000-mile snow machine race across Alaska. Teams of 2. Nome is the halfway point and the restart. I'd been warned that they might catch us, and here they were, catching us in the worst place at the worst time. Visibility 0. One machine passed within a foot of hitting me. Every year, I hear horror stories of snow machines colliding with dog teams. Killing dogs, killing mushers. Over 30 years of mushing, I had experienced my fair share of near misses. There was nothing I could do but strap my headlamp on backwards and pray. 15 minutes later, another team blasted past. My dogs heard them coming and warned me by slowing and turning around. They knew danger was coming. But the racers, barreling through the whiteout, had no way of knowing we were there. Then, lights, approaching from ahead. I didn't see Jamie and Jeff until they were even with my lead dogs. I am so grateful Jamie was looking out for me. When the racers passed him, he said, "If they can't see us, they definitely can't see Jonathan." So he turned back into the storm to escort me through. They turned on every light they had. Jamie led, Jeff and Caleb followed behind. It was a great kindness. But it came with unforeseen consequences. Snow machines run fine at speed, but slow them down in a storm like this, and the snow packs into the engines. They began to malfunction. Worse still, Jamie hadn't accounted for the distance he'd backtracked. Neither of us realized this oversight at the time. Jamie stopped and ran back to me. Standing just feet away, he shouted over the wind, "We're right on top of Solomon Cabin. We're very close." My mileage counter said otherwise. We still had 5 or 6 miles to go. But Jamie had been right every single time so far. He had a satellite GPS with topography on his machine, and I had a smartphone app, so I assumed he was right again. "Okay, go ahead and find it," I yelled. "I'll be okay. Just make sure we don't pass you." 20 minutes later, I saw Jamie standing just ahead of my lead dogs. Behind him, his parked snow machine, and behind that, a horizontal black line. The cabin? Jamie was motioning for the team to follow. awesome, I thought. We made it. But the wind kept increasing. Solomon was supposed to be after the blowhole. And this was the worst yet. Couldn't possibly get any worse. We were already frostbitten. Before entering the blowhole, it had been a -20 Fahrenheit with 40-mile-per-hour winds. What we now experienced made that seem like child's play. I was trained in the Marines to estimate wind speeds, and this was off the charts. The team and I conservatively estimated gusts of 70 to 80 miles per hour. The temperatures had dropped to -30 Fahrenheit. So we were therefore facing wind chills of -78 Fahrenheit or lower. In these conditions, freezing to death, for dogs and men, was one mishap away. I ran up to stake the team and caught a glimpse of the cabin. It was not Solomon's cabin by the Bureau of Land Management that we were looking for. Not even a Nome Kennel Club shelter. This was an old trapper shack, half filled with snowdrifts. The 1-inch wood door was encased in 3 feet of drifted snow. By the time I realized what had happened, my team had turned inward, 16 dogs curled into a massive ball of fur. I tried to untangle them, but it was futile. As soon as I untangled a few and went to untangle more, the freed dogs just simply returned to the pile. I noticed blood on some faces. I checked feet. There were no cuts, no signs of fighting. Where was it coming from? Scorched lungs, I thought, like in the old expedition books. No, it wasn't coming from their mouths. Then I saw it. The blood was from their lips. Wherever bare skin around the lips and eyes touched the metal snaps or the collar rings on another dog, it had frozen to it. And as I was pulling the dogs apart, working frantically, I was inadvertently tearing their skin. "This was a bad idea," Jamie shouted, partly for the wind and partly in frustration, standing inches from my face. "What was a bad idea?" I yelled back, partially asking and partially challenging him to further criticism. "Coming here. We should have stayed at the last shelter cabin." "Jamie, this isn't Solomon Cabin," I shouted. My tone was sharp. I regretted it immediately. Our emotions were as raw as the blistering skin on our faces. "We're here now," I said, wanting to diffuse the tension. "We'll make the best of it." We really didn't have a choice at this point. In the short time we had been stopped, my team had shut down. The machines had shut down. We were shutting down. Jamie and Jeff positioned their snow machines as windbreaks. I lined out the team as best I could. I fed them. But for the first time in the expedition, the dogs refused to eat. They were in survival mode. They just wanted to shelter together beneath the snow. And then insecurities hit me. Do I trust what I think I know about my dogs? Or do I play it safe? If my reader will indulge me for a few paragraphs, I will explain. Racing Alaskan Huskies are a cross between Siberians and hounds. But like any hybrid, you rarely get the best of both worlds. Gain Siberian winter hardiness, lose hound speed. Gain hound speed, lose winter tolerance. I often say it's like building a vehicle. A sports car can't survive a dirt road, and an off-road truck isn't winning any races. Try to build one that does both, and you may end up with a machine that does neither well. My dogs weren't racing Huskies. They were Sepalas, cross-country semi-trucks of the old world. bred not for speed, but for survival, moderate loads, long distances, harsh conditions. They weren't fast, but they were winter hardy in a way that racing huskies could only dream about. I knew this. I'd lived it. Back home, in minus 40-degree storms, they preferred a blanket of snow to any doghouse or covering. Where racing huskies needed booties to prevent injuries, I only used them like Band-Aids for occasional injuries. My Sapalas have iron paws. I also knew they really didn't need the dog coats, not like racing dogs do. But modern expectations are loud, and the public has come to believe that coats are essential. So I spent $2,000 of expedition budget money on dog coats, not because I really believed the dogs needed them, but because I knew people would expect to see them. We'd already used the coats a few times when temperatures plunged and the dogs were resting. But the dogs never seemed to enjoy them. They tolerated them. Intellectually, I believed all of this. Truly, Arctic dogs are better without the coats in ground blizzards like this. The dog coats will prevent the natural snowdrift cocooning over the dogs. The wind just blows off of these coats. But now I had to ask, was that belief based on true understanding or just my stubborn pride? You have $2,000 worth of dog coats in that sled, Jonathan. Maybe you're just making excuses because you want to get out of this blizzard and into the shelter, I thought. If you wake up tomorrow with a dead dog because you stood on your principles, how will you feel then? That settled it. I would coat them. I began pulling dogs out of the snow and fighting to get their jackets on without losing one to the wind. It was all I could do to keep them from being ripped out of my hands. Caleb lost one of his personal expensive coats to the sea while we worked. Anything not tied down was gone. While I focused on the dogs, my teammates turned their focus to our survival. My wrist, where a small slit between the glove and the sleeve exposed the skin, was already throbbing, like someone had poured boiling water down my forearm. I could feel frostbite creeping in. I could see it on my comrades' faces, too. Snowdrifts. Caleb dug out the door so it could close. Jeff shoveled out wood. Jamie fought with the tiny stove. But it was a losing battle. The inside of the cabin never rose above zero. Hoarfrost clung to the walls. Snow sat in pots on the stove for hours before melting into usable water. At my request, Caleb set up the Starlink satellite so I could reach out for some counsel. Thankfully, I was able to contact Aaron Burmeister, a 22-time Iditarod veteran and Nome native, and my dear friend and Iditarod musher and Anchorage doctor, Larry Dougherty. Their replies were sobering. Aaron said, "Your first instinct was right. The dogs you have would have been better off without the coats in that storm. Wind can blow snow up under their coats, and it melts and refreezes beneath." Larry added, "You never stop in the Blowhole. You stop before or you push through to Solomon." It was salt in the wound. I knew that. Larry continued, "Don't think you can sit there and wait it out. You could be stuck for days." Aaron added, "If there's a lull, it'll come just after first light. You need to be ready to go then, come what may." By now, my teammates were snoring. The cabin groaned under the weight of the storm. I lay awake, staring at the wall. I thought about what Gerhard Thihart, South African Special Forces officer and musher, had said when he stopped and tapped out of the Iditarod in this same spot. Gerhard said, "I was injured, had broken bones, but would have persevered. I hit the SOS because I was going to lose some dogs if I didn't." I thought about Aaron's words. Your dogs would have been better off without those coats. And Larry's, you never stop in the blowhole. I looked around the shack, maybe 10 feet by 16. Just enough room. Maybe enough to undo a few of my mistakes. I sat up. Guys, sorry to wake you, but I'm bringing them in. The leaders? Caleb asked groggily. All of them, I replied. Jeff grinned. I was hoping you'd say that. Let's get those puppies in here. Thanks for listening to this free recording of 100 Winters, my new book. If you're enjoying it, I want to ask you to go to Amazon and purchase a copy. You can reach out to us at Mush, Maine on our social media or website if you'd like an autographed copy. Until next chapter, Godspeed and happy trails.